On today's episode of Tips from the Top Floor, you'll find out what keeps me busy, what I've got coming up, and I will talk with Alan about a little project that we've done together 10 years ago, the Invisible Camera. This episode is supported by Eneloop Pro. This is Tips from the Top Floor, episode 903 for April the 8th, 2021.
Tips from the top floor, tips from the top, alright, from the top floor.
Hey, yep, you're not dreaming, you're wide awake. This is episode 903 of Tips from the Top Floor, TFTTF, the show about all things photography. I am Chris, and yes, it has been 10 years since we released the Invisible Camera, and later in the show I will talk about this with Alan in detail. And if you're new to Tips from the Top Floor, if you don't know what the Invisible Camera is, which a lot of people still don't know, I would suggest you stop listening to this episode right now and watch that video first. It is a 6 minutes and 40 video, and this episode will contain a few very big spoilers, so I'll wait here. Go watch it. And when you come back, we'll go into some detail on that project. Anyway, before we kick this episode off, I owe you a bit of an update. Just a couple of things. Feel free to skip forward. I know you've been waiting for a while, but yeah, things have been quite busy on other fronts, and taking a bit of a hiatus from TFTTF was kind of necessary to recharge batteries, to just to manage my general energy levels, which have been a bit affected by the things of the last year. So in the next few minutes, here's a quick update about my pandemic situation, the Marquardt International Pinhole, and the other places besides TFTTF where I've been busy. So let's start with the COVID update. I'll make this short, I promise, because you're all fed up. Totally fed up with this, and I can totally understand. I really am. So, third wave in Germany right now. We have a shortage of vaccines, which, like in a country of Germany, is a bit unexpected, right? I was hoping to be faster, but just don't ask. My dad got his both his shots. My mom got her first shot. My brother got his first shot, and so that's a big relief. And as things stand right now, I hope to get my shot by, I don't know, sometime in summer, maybe fall of this year. So until then, it's hunker down time. But you know, the good thing is that the Viewfinder Villa is a bit outside Hanover. It's in the countryside, so we live in an area where it's relatively easy to keep your distance, and I'm also pretty good at not spending time with people, which you wouldn't think if you met me on a photo tour, on a workshop. But, you know, there's that introvert side of me that means staying home isn't too much of a burden. We've done gardening, we've done lots of cooking, and now we're doing lots of walking to get rid of some of the COVID kilos. But so from that point of view, it's a sort of bearable. Anyway, wear the mask, keep your distance, reduce contacts. This ain't over until it's over. Be nice to each other and be compassionate, okay? Next part of the update, podcast appearances. Oh yes, because not being on TFTTF doesn't mean I'm gone. Not at all. If you miss me in your podcatcher, I've actually been quite busy, and here are a few places for you to look at. For example, just a couple of days ago, I've been a guest on the latest Photo Geek Weekly with Don Komarechka, which is amazing. I love the show. Real nerd material. Always a pleasure to nerd out with him. And I've just released as a not connected, but as a separate thing, I've just released a little video revisiting the Invisible Camera, kind of a reaction video. Again, we'll talk about this later in the show. And so that's the second one. The third one is TFOP, The Future of Photography, which is a weekly podcast, which I'm really enjoying because we were doing weekly episodes, and it has become just a great roundtable format. We do this in audio and video. We've got some great interaction there. There's a bunch of awesome people. Adrian and I did this for a long while. We did it just the two of us, but then after we added Emar from Ireland and Jeremiah from LA, it's just become such a wonderful group of people to hang out with once a week. And it's also the great different perspectives. Adrian coming a bit from the analog world with Sunny 16, Emar being in the arts scene in Ireland, Jeremiah being a lauded Hollywood director from Hollywood, from LA. I mean, it's a great combination of different viewpoints, and it's just become such a wonderful group of people. Yeah, I love the topics that we talk about too. So that's linked in the show notes. Of course, if you have mastery of the German language, then there's Happy Shooting, the German photo podcast that I do together with Boris. Also has been on video for the last almost year now. We do weekly episodes. Chugging along there, and I'm thoroughly enjoying that part. Happy Shooting is kind of my video test bed, both for learning to get comfortable in front of a camera, which initially wasn't easy. Same as when I started talking to microphones years ago, as well as digging into more into the video technology side. We're using like cutting edge tech to make this a smooth production, and every time I learn something new, and it's wonderful. It's lots of fun to do that. Learning new skills. That is I think adding the video part, making this as seamless as possible is probably among my bigger COVID projects, because lots to learn here, and I'm really happy that this is coming. It's coming out the way it is. Next one is Curiously Polar. Weekly Arctic, Antarctic topics, polar topics. And it's interesting because that after just talking about topics, it's now turning into almost like a bit of a news show. Almost with a bit of a comedic value, because Henry and I, we get together really well. And I really like that. The dynamics there is wonderful. And it's also with the serious slant, because the polar regions are pretty good indicators for where our climate is going to go. So, and while there is enough doom and gloom that we could put in the show, and sometimes we have to, but we're still managing to make this entertaining. Like we had, I don't know, there's one story from earlier this year. This amazing story. There was this nuclear-powered Russian supply ship that was on the way from Russia down to Antarctica, and on the way it lost one of its propeller blades. So imagine a big ship's propeller, at the end, one big propeller, and this one was one with 4 blades, and it lost a blade. Just like that, poof, gone to the seafloor. Of course, the ship couldn't just continue going, because that was... Yes, it's not possible, because the mass was not centered anymore. And of course, the ship being big and being a nuclear-powered ship, they couldn't just go stop somewhere along the way, go into a dock for repairs. No. So what they had to do is they had to get divers to cut off the opposite blade on the other side of the screw. So make it a 2-blade screw out at sea, and then they had to kind of let it fall to the bottom of the ocean to join the other blade, which is just a crazy story. And they got some form of balance back in the propeller, and they were able to go back to Russia. Unbelievable stories. And that one was with us for several weeks. So Curiously Polar is really evolving into something quite fun. Or I don't know, the massive iceberg in the Antarctic that broke off the ice shelf, and then it was making its way towards the north with weekly satellite pictures, information, and video on where it is and what enormous pieces broke off of it. Really enjoying that show with Henry. And speaking of my co-host Henry, again, lots of amazing interactions with him. Really, really enjoying those on a weekly basis. So that's Curiously Polar. What other project? Marquardt International Pinhole, of course. Yes, I know it's taking longer than expected. Everything right now is taking longer. It's just the way it is. I'm still sorting out some of the shipping details and stuff, getting packaging material, some basic stuff. It's dragging along a bit. And we're talking about 50 cameras, roughly, plus minus, but about that 50 cameras, which originally when we made the invisible camera, the Marquardt International Pinhole, it's a real thing. When we made that 10 years ago, that was we had to make more of the hardware pieces, the pinhole holder, the tripod thread, the attachment buttons. We had to make or have made more than just the set of 10, because that wouldn't have been economic. So we had leftovers, and my friend Jürgen, who is the furniture maker who made the boxes for them, he had some time thanks to the pandemic, so he dug into making new cameras, and we have them. And they will, I guess we'll release them in batches of around 10. And the price, the original International Pinhole sold for €1,000, €1,000. And that helped us finance some of, offset some of the cost for having the hardware made, which was remarkably expensive. And we ended up with a zero-sum game after selling those 10 cameras. And now, of course, there's a lot of more work that went into that. So, but I still managed to bring the price down. So the price for an individual camera out of those 50 will be in the €600 range per camera, which will include the camera itself. And you get to choose from one from the selection of different beautiful woods, which again, there will be different woods, of course. Every one is a one-of-a-kind work of art. It will include the laser drilled scientific grade precision pinhole. Yes, that is still part of it. And one attachment strap of your choice to attach the film cassettes or the medium format backs or the digital scanning backs or whatever you want to strap onto the camera. And those straps, by the way, are still the quirky, very, very special straps that we had made with names like I Am Your Father or Velvet Blue or Papa Smurf. If you see them, you know why we're calling them that. That's probably one of the ideas around that, the Marquardt International Pinhole, that I'm most proud of, because they are such a great way to personalize your camera. Is the combination with the different woods and the different straps they make a one-of-a-kind camera that looks good on your shelf too. And and then you can also get optional accessories. Like one of the things we're not delivering the camera with now, and to bring the price down, is the transport box. It'll be wrapped nicely into some cloth wrap. But that would be extra, and then film cassettes would be extra. If you already have film cassettes, 4x5 stuff, then you won't need any. If you don't have any, you can get them from the shop, from the International Pinhole shop. And then the cameras will ship worldwide. And then after those 50-ish cameras are gone, that will be it. Because there are no plans whatsoever to make any new Marquardt International Pinholes. So when those 50 are gone, they're gone. That will be your only chance to get one. And while I still prepare the website to go live and to start selling them, you can put your name on the list of interested parties at internationalpinhole.com, and I will ping you once they go online. So that was the MIP update. Consulting update. Yep. Last but not least, that's the last piece of the update. Quick one on the business side, because yeah, there are still no photo workshops in sight for me right now. And I've been focusing on like stuff to keep me busy and to keep some income flowing. And there's some consulting around remote video production that I do. That's the OBS Ninja Academy that I founded. And there does seem to be a demand for that, because remote video production in a good fashion, in proper quality, audio and video wise, that's still not easy with the current tools available. So I've built a lot of expertise in that area, and some online photography coaching, which, again, I mean, this is what I love doing. This is why I do the podcast. This is why I do the photo tours, the workshops, because of the teaching of helping others become better photographers. And so the online photography coaching, that's the Photo Sensei that I do, is still going. And it's probably 4 to 5 sessions a week, which could be a few more, but I'm not complaining. I like teaching. And if you're interested in any of that, then there are links in the show notes. I'd like to say a quick thank you to this week's sponsor, Eneloop Pro. So I guess you use batteries for your flashes, for your transmitters and receivers, for your other photo accessories. And I've been using Eneloop Pro for ages. So when Eneloop approached me and asked me if I would be interested to talk about them here on the show, that was an instant match, because my battery drawer, it's right here. I can reach it from where I sit right now, and it's filled with Eneloop Pro. So why do I use them? Well, that is very simple. They are rechargeable many hundreds of times, so that reduces waste, that saves you on cost. The AA's hold 2,500 milliamp hours, which is quite beefy. They are environmentally friendly. They have great performance. And here's one of the key points: they really hold their charge. I mean, how often have you taken batteries from your battery drawer just to find them depleted because they've been sitting there for too long? Not with Eneloop Pro. They retain 85% of their charge after 1 year in storage. So you just won't have any surprises there. Eneloop Pros are ideal for your camera gear, and they come in AA and AAA sizes. And did I mention they come pre-charged with solar energy? I think that's pretty cool too. So next time you're looking at batteries, reduce some battery waste, save on battery costs, and check out Eneloop Pro. I use them every day. And thanks to Eneloop for the support. All right, so the invisible camera is, what is the invisible camera? Well, for those of you who don't remember, which is always a possibility, it is an April Fool's joke that Alan Attridge and I did 10 years ago. Yep, it's been 10 years. April 1st, it was exactly 10 years. Well, actually, 7 days earlier, it was exactly 10 years, because we released that before April 1st was there, a week early, and it was this. Yeah, it was a scary thing to do. It was a fun thing to do. It was a scary week to live through while we saw the reactions coming in and this kind of blowing up in the photo community. And then on April 1st, we pulled the plug and took it offline. And the whole what was going on there, how did we feel about it, and so on. That is what I talked to Alan Attridge about. Alan Attridge is the host of the Two Hosers podcast. He's been a guest here on the show numerous times, and we recorded this for his Two Hosers podcast, but I thought it would be fun to put it on this episode, so here you go. Let's talk about what happened 10 years ago.
Okay, I'm rolling. So I still should do a countdown for my sake, but...
We'll do a countdown and a clap, whatever you want.
Clap does not help.
You count. I'll join in.
5,
4,
3,
2.
1. Don't really need the 1. That's just for continuity, really.
The film guy.
It's really it fits. It should be quiet. It should be like the 2 pop and then just quiet, right? Like that's how you do it. You don't actually say the 1. But yeah, that's worked for 10 years with Adam and I. We've never messed up that sync. So 0 sync problems in 10 years.
It's the low tech approach that works best.
It is well. I also like to give Adam as little to do as possible. Fewer variables.
Yeah, for some people, that is the best way is to not have to do anything.
Right. So Mr. Marquardt, 10 years. Like this snuck up on me. The 10 years.
Me too.
Well, not even. I mean, the 10 years, of course, but the last year. Like I remember I remember a year or 2 ago. I remember thinking, oh wow, it's 8 years and it was like, the 10's coming up. What should we do? And then we should do COVID. That's what we should do.
Yes.
That took precedence. So maybe we'll do the 11. Ours go to 11, like Spinal Tap. We'll fool everybody again.
This completely burned my ability to ever fool anyone ever again.
I don't know if that's true.
Well, at least the people who got fooled by it or who saw it and liked it and did not get fooled by it. For a long time, for many years since then, or after we did the invisible camera, I often heard people say, "Is that a fool? Is that an April Fool's jokes? Is that?" So people were really cautious, really on guard for
but people forget, and then all of a sudden, like you've gained your credibility back, so we can ruin that again next year. Do you remember before we get into the visible camera part and how that all started? But do you remember? I got more emails 1 year later from the invisible camera. Do you remember what came? I think it was 1 year later. It might have been 2, could have been, but pretty sure it was 1. Do you remember what came out a year after, almost to the day?
There was another thing. What was it again?
The Lytro.
True, the lipstick camera, the Lytro, the 3D depth refocus camera that kicked off a lot of things. Yep.
I got emails from like my old high school teacher who I hadn't been in touch with in a while, and he said, "Is this you guys?" I said, "No, I think this might be real." Hard for me to know, but there's a lot of connection made by people I know anyway. I don't think the whole world stopped and went, "Hey, is this Marquardt and Attridge again?" But that happened. So I don't know. Does Lytro exist still?
Nope. Lytro did a pivot to business professional production only, and then they disappeared, and I think they got bought by Google or something.
Okay, but did the adjustable focus, the post-production focus?
That's in our phones now. That's in an iPhone with portrait mode, and you can change the aperture size and change the depth of field. And there's some machine learning part of that, but then there's also some of the depth information that the multiple cameras can capture and that kind of stuff. It's not the real light field kind of thing, but it's getting awfully close.
That's the computational version of that, right?
Yeah, and. In the end, for the end user, I don't think it makes a difference what the technology is. The result is what counts.
So unless it comes to cameras that you can't see. And then, I saw your video.
You could clearly see the camera, right?
You could. That was the joke of it. It was not that invisible. It wasn't Wonder Woman's plane. Although that was in my head when we thought about that like 10 years ago when that idea was being thrown around. That was part of what. So I saw your video, your reaction video, and I was amused because there were some things I'd forgotten about how we shot that, and that was a lot of fun. But let's go back. Do you remember how the idea started?
I don't know. So you and I, we both were neighbors pretty much, and I think you brought this up. I give you full credit for having the idea of doing something along the lines of an April Fool's joke. But the details, no. Hey, it's 10 years later. I'm over 50. Things fade, you know.
You are?
I'm 51.
Oh, wow.
I'm
Okay.
old. I feel, and after being reminded by a few people out there that it's the 10-year anniversary of the Invisible Camera, I feel even older now.
Okay. So I remember going over to your old the top floor over there in the
studio.
French Quarter. Yep. That's but it's how we met actually. Is I was living in the French Quarter with my wife. Were we married at the time? I think so. Yeah, we were married, and so we're living there. And I didn't know anybody in the business, and my wife simply entered tubing in photographer into
So
Google.
she's the culprit.
Yeah, she wanted me to get off the couch, and so she Googled that and said, "Hey, is this guy Chris Marquardt?" And I said, that name actually rings a bell. I had known because at the time there was only 2 photo podcasts, and you were one of them, one of the first, right? That's Tips from the Top Floor.
The one, not quite the first. There were a couple before me, but they both faded within a couple of months after I came on the scene. And it's not my fault that they faded. There's just like they just didn't have the stamina to keep going on a weekly basis or something.
Right. So my wife, she pointed me to you, and I said, I know that name. The name sounds familiar. And then so I reached out and emailed you. We met at was it La Tour? Remember the name of the place?
Oh yeah, nice corner cafe.
About 2 minutes in, you just said, "Hey, do you want to come on the show?" And I thought, podcast. I don't know what studio. Like, how does this work? Like the magic behind the podcast. And we went upstairs and we recorded an episode. And I was pretty nervous because I didn't know what I was doing, and still don't. 10 years later, but
Same here.
they'll give a podcast to pretty much anybody. That's the good news. And so I remember we talked, and then we talked about something else, and I came back, and I hadn't known you very long. Like it was really that must have been the end of 2010 that you and I first talked on the first episode.
Yeah. Feels about right.
And then right after that, the Two Hosers launched in January, the first week of January of 2011. And I was over at your place shooting something, and I saw the prototype for the Marquardt International Pinhole.
Which is, by the way, coming back.
Coming the
FYI.
Are you calling the MIP-X?
No, it's the MIP. But let's talk about this later. Let's continue with the invisible camera first.
So I saw it sitting there, and I thought, and you explained what it was, and for some reason, I don't know why I thought of it. I thought of Wonder Woman's plane, and thought, what if we made an internet version, an invisible version, and just had fun with it? This was sometime sort of probably the first week of March, I'm guessing. And so you said, okay. I know you were a little bit nervous, though, because you actually had listeners and something to lose. And I had nothing to lose, literally. So
I don't
remember
even
being
remember
nervous?
if I was nervous or not. Probably a little, but yeah. Why not? Why not go for it? I mean, it was very exciting. So we threw together a few ideas. You had the basic idea, and then I think we workshopped that a bit. And
well, we shot the rehearsal. Remember, we shot for like a couple of hours one day,
which was just a session winging it pretty much.
right? Which I thought was going to be the thing. Like I fully intended that we're going to shoot the rehearsal, we're going to shoot the writing process of this, and that's going to be it, and that's going to work. And so we shot for a couple of hours, which I thought was funny because back then CF cards were relatively expensive, so we were shooting on I'm going to say 4 gig cards.
Probably, yep.
So we'd get about 8 minutes on the 5D Mark II, and then have to switch out. 8 minutes sounds about right. 8 or 10 minutes, something like that. And so we kept switching out. So we had like a handful of cards. And so I took it home, and I went through all of it, and I realized
It's
that
completely unusable.
yeah, what's the opposite of gold? Like, that's what we had. Like,
do you still have that footage?
No. Hard drives are more expensive then too, so I got rid of that, and it doesn't need it's not even interesting to anybody, and so I went and thought, oh no, and so I then sat down and wrote a script. about not a script, but like a general outline of, okay, here's all the points we have to hit. Here's how it's going to shape.
So this turned into a proper filmmaking process.
Accidentally, it did. That was never my intention.
But it was a very, very good exercise, because I mean I learned a ton on how to approach storytelling, on how to approach making a compelling thing, a convincing thing, which I mean nowadays that's a skill. If you want to, I don't know, start a Kickstarter campaign or something, that's a good skill to have.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, and on any level, like even if it's like a feature length level, or just a short, like it's all storytelling. Short, obviously, somewhat easier because it's short. It's got that right in the name. But yeah, so we sat down and we had a lot of fun. And I remember there's a lot of outtakes. I remember from our conversation, but we would get it. We would get it out. Sometimes I would have to feed you line by line, which was fine.
It was a very painful process for you, especially because I'm just crap with the lines. It was really a slow and very, very. It's like fingernails on a chalkboard kind of a process.
But it came across.
Well, it came across. It worked. It was, in the end, the result was good. But the process itself was. I mean, I learned a lot about how good I am at doing things. Learning things by heart. I'm not. I never was.
Sure, but this kind of project was okay for that because.
But it produced a whole bunch of amazingly good outtakes, so that became part 2 of the invisible camera.
Well, that was kind of the hardest part for me to edit, because the first cut of that was around 40 minutes long, and. I remember going through it. Like normally, when I put anything together, like I usually I cut mostly subtractive. Like I talked on the show like a few months ago about the difference between additive and subtractive when it comes to any kind of art, like whether it's sculpture or painting or whatever. But so
especially video editing, I like the approach. You assemble the thing, you have a really long thing, and then you go through with a knife and you stab your own babies piece by piece.
Okay, I had a whole different other way to say it.
It's killing your babies, sort of, because you put your heart into shooting that and writing the lines and putting everything together.
Oh, that's true. That is true. But that you so I do two both processes. Processi. I'm not sure how to say that. So I don't do full on subtractive, like I throw everything in and then just start pulling away. I will start building the project, but I leave it fat, right? And then I'll go in and just go pass after pass, and pull out scenes, pull out shots, pull out bits, just like little. Like a second of a shot, and slowly tighten it up, so that I've gone through it so many times to like the last pass. I'll go through and I will pull out 4 frames of a shot and that kind of thing. Which it seems silly when you explain to somebody like 4 frames. What is that? 1/6 of a second.
Well,
right?
30 milliseconds a frame. So it's.
Right.
It's almost nothing, but it can make all the difference. The tiny, minute micro timing things.
Exactly, and so we'll go through and do that. And so, but when I cut the gag reel, there was so much, and I think the first cut was about 40 minutes long. And I thought, well, all of this is gold. Like, but to me and Chris, that's it. Like nobody else is going to care about all of this.
Even the final cut of the second part was like
long.
If I did it again this time around, I'd probably use 2/3 of it, maybe half of it.
Oh, I'd get it down to 3-4 minutes at the most. Yeah. I think it's what is it, like 10 minutes now, something like that.
Yes, like it's still fun. It was fun to revisit for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so you learned a bunch. I learned, first of all, I learned a whole lot about the internet for one. I mean, this is 2011, and so I had not had a video on YouTube. I knew what YouTube was. Like YouTube was pretty new in 2011 still. Not new, I mean, relatively speaking. So much so that, do you remember when I said to you in some sort of, I don't even know where this bravado came from, we talked about how many views you'd like to get. Do you remember what you said?
No, I don't.
I think you said like, "Oh, I'll be happy if this gets 6,000," and which at the time wasn't terrible. Like I said, now YouTube, everything, gift openings, toy box openings get 1 million in the first minute, right? But at the time, that wasn't a thing. No one knew. Your parents didn't know what YouTube was.
No, of course not.
And so you said, "Oh, if we get 6,000, that'd be great," or whatever it was. And I said, "Oh, we're gonna get 100,000." And you laughed. You said, "There's no way." And I didn't actually know. I really didn't. I didn't know how. I had nothing to base that on. I just felt nice. I felt like 100,000 would have been awesome.
Yeah, we finally got that. And we're up at 131,000 at this point.
We hit 100,000 pretty close to around that time. Like it went up pretty quick. But that was my introduction, because at the time I barely knew what YouTube was. I did not know what Twitter was. And I mean, Twitter wasn't what Twitter is now, I don't think.
No, it was the happy days of Twitter.
It was the Fonz was on Twitter. So do you remember when we went live with it?
I do, yeah.
You remember me? You know who I am, right?
It was tense.
It was, because that's what I say. You were a little bit nervous, if I remember, because you thought, yeah, I'm gonna catch heat here from some people.
And of course, what we did is we released that a week before April 1st, just to add a bit of to make it a bit more convincing, and that rubbed a few people the wrong way.
Yeah. which I loved. So for me, you had a Twitter account. You had Twitter followers at the time. Like I said, I didn't know what Twitter was. I didn't have a phone. Like none of that, right? And so you hit go. We hit publish on YouTube, and then right away you sent it out via the Twitter sphere.
And we watched the applications coming in for the field test, because
that was separate. Yes.
Yeah, but that's what we asked at the end of the video. We asked for volunteers for the field test, and that was, I believe, a Google form, so we could see them come in piece by piece, watching the spreadsheet filling up with applications. Which
that came in fast, but what blew my mind is that when you hit publish and then on Twitter, well, the video is like 6 minutes long. I don't remember, something like that.
6:40 is it's 6:40. Yeah.
2 minutes after you hit Twitter, you were getting responses back saying, "I'm watching this. Oh my God, my mind is blown." People were tweeting in the middle of watching it for the first time, which kind of really, really messed with my head. Like I didn't understand how that worked. I sound like such a hick. I'm from a big city. I am from Vancouver.
You sound like you're older than me.
Hey, Ma, look at that pointy-haired little girl. But watching that spider web, and you had some sort of a tracking software or something that you could watch, and you could see who was tweeting or retweeting, or I don't remember at the time. I remember maybe you made it up. I don't remember.
I think I just looked at the stats and had the mentions of it on the screen somewhere. It wasn't anything sophisticated, but it gave us a good idea that was actually generating some interest. And then shortly after, it ended up in a few blogs. I think Petapixel wrote about it, and a couple of others, bigger publications. Right. So it got more distribution. Yeah,
that was the funnest part for me, is because first of all, at the time, once again, I at the time I had no idea what Petapixel or Fstoppers was. Yeah, and you'd said, "Oh yeah, like this is cool that they've picked this up," and I'm like, "Oh, I'll take your word for it. Like that's fine." And so they picked it up. They knew. I think they knew. We didn't contact them. Somebody saw it and put it on. I didn't contact. You didn't contact them, did you?
No. It happened organically.
So they saw it. They evidently got the joke, but still ran with it. Like, good for them. Like, I was really impressed later on. I thought, wow, good for you guys for running with that. And because it could have made them look silly if or angered their readership or etc. But good for them. But what really kind of blew my mind at that point was them, those two, and then there was like a handful of other ones that had published the story and left the comment section open. And those started to fill up. And so what blew my mind was going back, and I started reading through the comments. You told me do not comment. You said never, ever, ever, don't feed the trolls, don't comment. And so I never got involved, but I read it all, and there were people arguing about the technology and yes, of course it will work, and there's this, and what about this, and oh my God. And I thought, people around the world are arguing about what's inside my head.
Strange feeling, isn't it?
That was very strange to me. Like, they're arguing the merits of something that we made up out of whole cloth.
I mean, having looked at it back, I mean, of course, I can't fool myself, but looking at it, it starts really grabbing you in the beginning. It's very, it's really well crafted. It pulls you in. It hints at things, and then it stays believable for about, I'd say, about half the video, especially if you don't have a scientific, if you don't have a scientific background, if you're not a nerd, if you're not a geek, real deep into the things here, it stays believable for a long time, and then once that hook is in, that's when that's when the video starts kind of becoming a bit less believable and a bit more crazy. And
it did, but I remember, when we were coming up with the story, and I said, okay, well, here, when we lie, we have to go big. We can't just make something small, because that's not believable. If we go so big,
over
and
the
absurd,
top, yes,
over the top, and then be very specific.
Yeah.
Which you did. I mean, you ended the gigapixel race.
Oh, we ended the gigapixel race. We ended the realm of the terapixel.
Football fields.
Football field sized sensors, because you measure things in football fields apparently. There's directional desensitization, which I think coming up with that, we tried 4 or 5 different things, and then that's the one where we had this big grin on our faces, because that was just too good. And the whole, it's a bit like a little boy drawing a car with 10 rooms in it and letters and things. It's like making up something that you want to have, that you want to be a reality. And that's what we did, because that technology would have been amazing if there was any way for making this into existence. By the way, there's another trend. Okay, so this was a plexiglass box that we used as a prop here. There's another plexiglass box that actually was a camera a bit later. Do you remember the red one?
No.
Okay, so someone used a red plexiglass box with a lens and put orthochromatic film in it, which doesn't see red. So you can actually watch a piece of film be exposed through the outside of the box, because the film doesn't know what red light is. So that is an actual thing that happened a few years later, and I saw this and I was like, wow, we should have
sue. we can. Well, that's the funny thing was one of the reasons that we wanted to, I wanted to, and then you agreed, or that was your motivation too. It wasn't to fool anybody, and which I felt a little bit not bad after, but that some people took it hard, and I thought, well, that wasn't the intent. The intent was, when you were a kid, we were both around the same age, and I remember when I was a kid, every so often there would be something truly magical in terms of technology or transportation, like the space shuttle, or something would come along that would absolutely blow your mind, if you spent 2 seconds thinking about it. And there sort of became a stretch where that stopped, where lots of amazing innovations are happening, but
you lost that sense of wonder.
Well, last year, you know, the CIA or the Pentagon announced, yep, there's aliens, and everyone went, yeah, all right, fine. You know, like no one cares. Whereas, could you imagine? I kind of do, but you know, it's like if you found the Ogopogo, you'd wanna see it. But now, no, of course, it's a Lake Okanagan. I'll send you some links to what that is. But it's it's the Loch Ness Monster of British Columbia.
Ah, okay.
So that was our idea, was like, you know what? Like I long for that sense of wonder from when I was a kid, or that amazement. So let's give the people that, even if it's for a short time. But some people didn't find that.
Even though we put so much effort into trying to handle that plexiglass box without putting fingerprints on them, which was impossible. My favorite shot, and that's the one I used for the thumbnails, and that I keep using, is the one against the sun up in the forest behind the place you lived, where we did where we shot the in the field chapter or act, and there's this shot that you shot it through. Okay, so through the trees, the sun was setting. And you shot against that light with me holding up that box and looking in wonder and amazement at the box. And I use this as a thumbnail, even though every time I see that thing, the only thing I see is a million of fingerprints on that box, because it was impossible to work with that thing without it getting smudged up.
We should have had gloves. That would have been the move.
White Mickey Mouse gloves.
I do also love the fact that the pinhole, the metal pinhole, was not fixed into that.
No.
It was just gravity held it.
It was
an
eBay bought skink pinhole holder made from steel, and I tried to find a good way to wedge that into the hole, and there wasn't a good way without it showing on the video. We could glue it in or anything. It was only held by gravity, which also explains why most of the time when we show the camera, it's leaning forward a little bit, because otherwise that pinhole holder would be falling out.
Right.
We didn't have a tripod thread, so we had to lodge it on top of the tripod in a way that it would just not fall off, which it sometimes wanted to. And wipe it off all the time with a cloth because of the fingerprint. It was crazy.
Did you get blowback from any of your friends?
A couple for a short time. Someone was like, no, that was not funny. But a few weeks later, that evaporated and just turned into chuckles. So no hard feelings from anyone.
I had two pretty big blow-ups with
Really?
Because I didn't tell anybody. The only person who knew was my wife, and I think I told my dad. I was telling him while we were doing it, and that was it. I didn't tell a single other person. Even after we sent it out, I didn't tell anybody. So I have a really good friend of mine who now lives in Sydney, Australia. He was living there then. He's been there for quite some time, and he had moved to Sydney, Australia, and so he was there, and he was in a camera club, and when he found out about this. Like, I emailed him the link, said, hey, check this out, what project I'm working on with this guy. And he went to this camera club and told everybody about it. My buddy's done this. They all went bananas. They thought it was the greatest for a week. And then it came, and then I think he was not really invited back to that camera club. They were pretty mad at him for some reason. So he sent me a very, very nasty email. Hey man, how about a heads up for your buddies next time? And then another buddy of mine I went to film school with, and he was living in Victoria, British Columbia. He was working for the news studio over there, TV station, and he told all his buddies, all the camera guys, holy cow, check this out. And not only did they love it, a number of them signed up to be field testers.
Mm. Oh yeah,
So
we had a whole interesting roster of people signing up to be field testers.
Yeah. So he didn't talk to me for about 6 months after that. He was really, really angry.
Wow.
But the field test part, like, and so that to me, that was the fun part. Do you remember how that came about?
What came about? The field test?
The field test.
Well, didn't we just want a way to gauge engagement and interest?
I wanted to give people sort of like an action step. Like, is not just interest. Like obviously it's interesting, but to convince people that, hey, you could be part of this. Do you want to be part of this? Will you take the next step? Will you walk away with this? When you walk away from your computer, will you still be engaged in this? And then you said, hey, and plus we can mine a bunch of data, is what you said.
Yeah, but we never did. I mean,
No, you didn't say that. Come on.
No, I didn't.
You never said mine data.
Because what we did is after we kind of came clear with the truth. I distinctly remember sending out an email to everyone who signed up as a field tester and apologizing for the prank, and assuring them that the database, the emails and everything is going to be deleted, and it's gone. Nothing there.
The data mining had never occurred to either of us at the time. 'Cause I remember reading about it online after, thinking, it's just a way to get email addresses. And it's like, no one uses email.
I remember when it was out, for the week it was out, about a week, that I got a very stressed out phone call from Michael, the friend of mine who back then owned the online store for film and chemistry and development stuff, who played the film chemistry guy in the video, because I think I had asked him before we had the idea, and then it was a bit of time, and in between I held a workshop together with him, and I asked him if he wanted to be in our prank, and he's like, yeah, sure, no, why not? And then we shot that on the spot with a horrible camera, horrible audio, but you did the English voiceover, so that kind of fixed it, and he was happy to oblige. And then when the whole thing started blowing up, he got contacted by some of his customers asking about it, because they recognized him. So he called me, and he was quite stressed out about this, because he was afraid it would tarnish his reputation, and that and the whole bunch of people, like we had on the field testers application list, we had scientists, we had teachers, we had people that it's
special effects from a very
big
large
franchise.
Yeah, franchise is the way to put it. I tell people offline. I'm not telling it online who it was.
Yeah, someone who is like either head of special effects or very high up in special effects in that franchise, writing us that this I need to get my hands on this. Even if I don't make the first 100 that you said would get into the field test, I will do anything to get my hands on this. And
that was my moment.
And we had a few of those, not that high profile, but a few of those where I went like, did we go too far? Did we overstretch that? And a week later, I think either on the 1st or the 2nd of April, I think we pulled the plug and took it offline.
It was on April 1st. We did it. We did pull it on April 1st. We put it out there. Which, so I remember some people being angry that we didn't put it out on the 1st at the reveal.
Yeah, but that would have given it away.
Yeah. Next year we're doing it in November. Like, just sit tight. We'll do whatever. But I honestly can't believe it's been 10 years. It's something I do show to people every now and then. Like I've had people ask me about it and tell their friends, and they're like, wow, people who aren't even into photography just think, well, that sounds awesome. Like, wait for it.
Well, it does sound awesome. You know, one of my inspirations was Kubrick, Nixon, and The Man in the Moon,
which you told me about after, and I have seen it since. And
because it's I don't even know if that is the original name of the documentary, but it's in Germany, and it's a documentary, mockumentary that isn't like is a prank pretty much about how the moon landing was staged, and how Kubrick was involved, and Nixon and so on, and that really, a couple of years before we shot this, that totally got me, because it is exactly the same pattern. It starts off being very like mysterious, and they did such an amazing job editing together interviews, out of context pieces of interviews, and putting them in a new context. And it was so easy to believe. I mean, one of the things, for example, when we added in the Max Planck Institute into our video, and because that's a very convincing thing there. And there is a Max Planck Institute in Tübingen, so there's absolutely some truth there. And a friend of mine worked there, and we tried to shoot there, but there wasn't really a way to do that. But what we then did is we just shot the sign on the outside, because that's in the public. And
they let us in. I remember because I was confused when I saw your video. We went inside.
We were inside. We did shoot a bit. I think that one snippet of an oscilloscope, hands on an oscilloscope, is from in there. But
they said we couldn't use anything. They said.
But my friend then went to his boss just because he wanted to be on the cautious side, and he asked his boss, and his boss said no. So,
right.
So we did use the oscilloscope thing, but yeah, no, I think that's not going to be harmful anymore. And we shot the sign on the outside, which says in German, it says Max Planck Institute for Development Biology, which is. Yeah, but it says Max Planck Institute, and your neighbor, what was his name again? Jürgen, who posed as a scientist from Max Planck Institute.
Yeah, he sold books. That's what he did. He worked at a bookstore.
Right.
So the one piece of made up information that turned out to be true, I don't even know why I chose him, but I chose Jacques Cousteau. Because it sounded cool. I loved the name. I love the name Jacques
Cousteau, deep sea exploration. You need very sensitive cameras down there.
But it hadn't occurred to me. I never made that connection. I just thought, it'd be funny to throw in an obscure name, a French guy, and who knows, throw it in. Turns out they were doing some work with low light stuff at the bottom of the sea, with some sort of, I forget the name of it, the something eye, the snake eye, or something like that.
Yeah.
Serpent's eye, eel's eye.
Something like that.
Rattle off names until everyone stops listening. But it turns out he'd been doing something, and that struck a chord. I saw a number of comments of people discussing, "Oh man, maybe they're piggybacking on his work," and I thought, "Oh, we are not actually. It just complete coincidence."
There is no. Okay, I'm just trying to find it online, but I can't.
Eagle eye. No, it's got to be a fish related something.
Jellyfish eye.
We'll figure it out.
So yeah, we got a bit of heat for it, and again, for years and years, whenever I released anything near that time frame, people came back with, "Is that a joke? Is that a joke again? Is that another invisible camera?"
Well, totally worth it in my opinion. I think it worked out for you. I mean, you'd said that for every listener that you lost, because I remember you showing me some emails or messages you got, people saying, "That's it, I'm never listening to you again." But for every one of those, you got 10 new listeners, I think. So it kind of worked out.
It helped. It certainly helped to cement some status.
Sure.
I'm not sure which one, but it's okay. I think it's good to be famous for something. It doesn't really matter what it is, or infamous.
Infamous, better. Sure. Yeah. Hey, I'll be famous for literally for anything. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to pick nits. So, well, Chris, that's it. I have no ending to this. Do you have an ending?
Well, there's a link to the little video I shot, which is a 10-year after reaction video where I delve into some of the behind the scenes stuff as far as I remember, and I might be horribly wrong in some areas, as I just realized during this talk. But
no, you're very accurate in what you talked about. I went and watched it, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's right." And I think I watched it as much to figure out how much you remembered and see how much could be obscured through time. But no, that was pretty much it.
So for anyone who listens, if you want to prank a friend who hasn't seen it yet, just send them the link to the first invisible camera video without a comment, telling them, hey, that's awesome, and then get their reaction. And at the end, it links, and in the description, it links to the second part, which is the blooper reel. So that will certainly shed some light on it.
And check out Chris's reaction video too if you're listening. I put it up. I put it up in our show notes from our show last week. I'll put it up this week when this episode airs. But definitely check that out. All right, Chris. See you in 10 years, I guess.
See you then. Take care. And that was it for this week's episode. And there will be one next week. That is a promise.
I really couldn't go last, you make it such.
Thanks again to all of you who listen to this. I'm so happy you're still around and you haven't given up on me just yet.
I remember that
Of course, if you liked this episode, there's ways to help me keep on the lights over at tfttf.com/support.
remember that you said it ain't as easy.
Music for the show by Jeff Smith, sound partner in HP Gagarud, publishing and Slack challenges by Release Pixie, Matt, Rav, Sitar, Armstead, Slack invitations. Yep, the Slack is still a thing by Chief Invitation Officer CIO Rusty Russ. The link to get on the Slack is, of course, in the show notes or over at tfttf.com/yslack, WHYSLACK. My name is Chris Marquardt. You'll find me on social media at Chris MARQUARDT. Go out and take amazing photos. Share them with the world. Be nice to each other. Wear a mask. Be compassionate. And of course, happy shooting.